Texas A&M looked pretty solid against UTSA in their season opener, but what do they need to do against Utah State to move the needle forward?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are Locked On the Texas A&M Aggies. I am your host, Matt Galatzan, publisher of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Harrison, we are 1-0 here in College Station with Texas A&M coming off of a pretty good win over UTSA. I know that a lot of Aggie fans are going to say that it wasn't dominant, at least as dominant as they'd like it to have been. UTSA was a pretty good football team. There was some things that the Aggies certainly need to clean up, but overall the game went about as you and I expected, and we talked about last week. It was a little bit tighter in the first half, and then in the second half, Texas A&M really pulled away. The run defense did struggle a little bit. We talked about a lot of this stuff on Monday as well. But what I want to talk to you about today is, first, we're going to open up with some keys to the game that we think that A&M really needs to sort of tighten up going into this Utah State matchup. And then in segment 2, we're going to talk about some players that need to kind of take a step forward this week. And then in our third segment, we're gonna make some picks and give you some predictions for this weekend across college football. But let's start with the keys to the game, Harrison. I think first and foremost, the thing that the Aggies need to focus on, and the thing that the fans need to focus on the most when they're watching the football game, is Texas A&M stopping the run. The Aggies got gashed on the ground by UTSA and Robert Henry Jr. last week, and Bronco Mendenhall likes to run the football. This is a team that has some talent running the football. I think Texas A&M needs to focus on that heavily and make sure that they plug the leaks in the ground game in week 2.
Yeah, and as we talked about on Monday, if Cole Kubik's analysis of the game was that these guys were just jumping out of gaps, trying to make the great play instead of making the solid play. If that's true, and that's what led to the 200 yards on the ground given up, then you expect to see that correction this week. Stay disciplined, stay in your gaps, do your job, as Bill Belichick says. Didn't think I was going to make a Bill Belichick reference on the show today, but we did anyways. Matt, for me, the key to this game, and it's not really so much a key, but just a point of what I want to see out of this unit going into next week is they got to be better on third down, on offense specifically. 3 of 11 versus UTSA, not great. That's the money down. That's the down you're going to have to win versus Notre Dame. We saw Notre Dame time and time again late in that or early in that game. Their defense gave up some key third downs against Miami. You can't go 3-11 on third down and expect to win a game next weekend against Notre Dame. I want to see them have a little bit more smooth in operation on offense, and I think that starts on third down, but also starts with their run game and being more productive on first and second down, as we always talk about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. They need to iron these things out before they get to the Notre Dame game. I think that's critical because, as we saw this past weekend, even though Notre Dame lost, they're still a pretty dang talented football team, and they can do a lot of good things on that defense. So, critical point there. And then, for my third one, I was kind of waffling back and forth. I was trying to find something else on offense, but I think it comes back to the defense for me. I'd like to see them get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback this week. I think they did some good things against UTSA, but I really think that, especially if you're going to go to a place like Notre Dame in week 3, you really need to get that pass rush honed in. I know that Utah State is kind of a primarily running team. They're very balanced, but we need to see Cassius Howell get out there and get a couple sacks. Get some pressures. We need to see TJ Searcy do the same thing. I'd like to see some of these younger guys step up and get some rush on the passer, because I don't think that if you're the Texas A&M Aggies, if you don't start to figure out your pass rush and get better in the pass rush. I mean, I'm not saying they were bad against Utah State. That's far from the case. If we pull up the stats from the game, which I'm grabbing here right now. I'm on the Big 12. because I was looking at our picks for the weekend because we got a Big 12 game in there. But let's pull up the stats from Texas A&M and UTSA, and I can kind of hammer home my point here a little bit. There was some good things from Texas A&M. You had 9 TFLs. That's really, really good. You got behind the line of scrimmage, but the sack numbers were not there. Rylan Kennedy got your only sack. So I need to see TJ Searcy come out and get a sack. I need to see Cassius Howell come out and get a sack. I'd like to see some other people get in there and affect the passer, because against CJ Carr at South Bend, you're going to need for that to happen. So you need to start making it happen right now.
Matt, I'm with you 100%. It goes back to, I think when we talk about pass rush, I think a lot of people get honed in on the sacks and don't look at the greater picture. When I go back to last week and then look at the stats, I just pulled up PFF from that game. Not only do they need to get more pressure, but they need to start converting those pressures into sacks. I think that was the one trend that we talked about Texas A&M all of last year. When you talked about Texas A&M and their pass rush, it was these guys are good at getting pressure. These guys are good at getting in position to get a sack. We got to get the quarterback down on the ground. That's half the battle, is getting the quarterback down on the ground. I think you saw that last week. I think these guys can get in position to get a sack, but they actually have to do it and convert. So, yeah, you're looking at a guy like Cassius Howell, the returning guy, the leader on this defense up front. You're turning him to go do that, to go get one of these quarterbacks on the ground, because he looks the part. He looks the part, and he plays the part, has a nasty spin move off the edge there. But like you said, they need to find somebody opposite of him to also go rush the passer, because as we saw last weekend, good pass rushers, elite pass rushers can win you games, can ice you games in the final minutes. That could be the difference between a last-second touchdown or a last-second sack, game-sealing sack in the final moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have any other keys that you wanted to drop in there, Harrison, before we move on to our next segment? Because those were my two, and I think that those, stopping the run and getting pass rush and all the things that we talk about, those are all very critical things. But do you have like a dark horse or anything like that, a under the radar key that you're thinking of?
Not necessarily, just more so I think it really balances off of what we just talked about. I think pass rush, stopping the run are the two things for defense, being better on third down on offense and even on defense. And that goes hand in hand with getting your pass rush and being better against the run. But offensively, I want to see them assert themselves a little bit more on the ground this week. Only 110 yards rushing versus UTSA. Didn't have a rusher go for more than 40 yards. We know what Marcel Reed brings as a runner. There's no need to put unnecessary hits or carries on him this week. But you do have a running back, and you have a running back backfield that has probably one of the two best backs in the SEC, maybe nationally, Ruben Owens and Le'Veon Moss. I'm not saying you put the carries on those guys this week. Maybe you get them 10 carries apiece, but go to an Amari Daniels, go to an EJ Smith. Get these younger backs opportunities to carry the ball behind this talented offensive line that returns all 5 starters, really 6 starters, and see what you got. Build depth, because that was the one thing last year that hurt A&M down the stretches. Once you lost to Ruben Owens, once you lost to Le'Veon Moss, the run game kind of took a hit, and it's because you lost good football players. We'll start developing the guys that are going to go behind a Ruben Owens and Le'Veon Moss.
Yeah, I'm not saying I want to come out and see them run the ball 15 times a piece here this week. I would like to see them combine for more than 8 carries in this game, though. I think you need to get them kind of in game shape and get them in a rhythm before you head to Notre Dame. But we'll talk a little bit more about that stuff here in the next segment. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk Aggies that we think need to step up in week 2 and make a difference in this game against Utah State on Saturday. So stick with us. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. Mazda offers more than safety. It's won more 2025 IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. You can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel, the smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. My dyslexia got the better of me again for the second day in a row on the ad reads there, Harrison. But we're thriving. We're good. We're in week 2 of the college football season, and you know, I thought overall, I know that there were, like I said, kind of in the first segment, I know there were a lot of Aggie fans who were kind of disappointed in the way that game went on Saturday. I know you see the name UTSA and you think, oh, we should beat that team 56-7 like Texas did last year. I don't think that's necessarily the case. They had a lot of talent come in the transfer portal. They got a lot of good players on that team. You still damn near covered the spread. You won by what was the final score? 42-24.
Yep.
I mean, you're 6 points off covering. A late score from UTSA is what made the difference there as well. It wasn't like it was garbage time touchdown. You had some things you needed to clean up, and there were a lot of positives to take away from it. Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion looked like dudes. Marcel Reed looked like he had really taken a step forward in the passing game in terms of his velocity and his mechanics and those kinds of things. I thought the secondary looked a lot better. I thought the offensive line left a little bit to be desired. I thought the defensive line left a little bit to be desired. I thought the linebackers played well, but they need to get better in their run fits. So, yeah, I mean, it's week 1. There's going to be a lot of things that go in a lot of different directions that you need to figure out. And something that really goes toward that and helps you solve these issues are players stepping up and doing their jobs and taking a step forward, after the first week. So what I wanted to do in this segment is each of us pick one player that we think needs to take a step forward this week and clean things up from last week and be an impact player in this game at their position. I'm going to go first here. And I'm going to say Taurean York. I thought he had a good game last week. He Mike Elko praised him for how well he played last week. And I'm not talking about on-field performance as much necessarily, maybe, as kind of a combination of things. The Aggies need to get the running game fixed right now, because 2 weeks from now, you're going to be playing Jeremiah Love and who's the other running back at
Jadarian Price.
Jadarian Price. 2 of the best running backs in the country. Very good running back room there. Taurean York needs to get his guys lined up in the correct spots. He's the middle linebacker. He's the signal caller. They were misaligned far too often in the game on Saturday. That's why UTSA gashed them. It wasn't a line of scrimmage issue. It wasn't, a trench issue. It was they were not aligned well enough to stop the run. So Taurean York needs to get those guys lined up. He needs to get his hat in the line of scrimmage and help stop the run. And they can scheme it all they want during the week. If they're not in the right positions at the right time, then they're going to get gashed again this week because Utah State can run the football. So get your guys lined up, get them in the right spots, make sure you're in the right spot at the right time, get your run fits correct. And this, I think that this run defense is going to take a major step forward.
Yeah, I mean, going off that, I think with the linebackers, like we said, Taurean York was top of the stat sheet in tackles last week. But like you said, when you look at an analyst like Cole Kubik talking about guys not being in the right gap, not doing their responsibility, that's a problem, especially in games like that, especially in games down the road like A&M will play. They're going to have to stop the run to be as good as they want to be on defense. I mean, for me, Matt, to kind of go off that, I'm going to call out probably that front line. I'm looking at, we talked about Cassius Howell as a pass rusher. That's something they need to see him more out of him and continue to be there. But he needs to be better against the run. Set a hard edge. Don't let those guys cut it outside. When your primary responsibility is against some of these wide zone teams and some of these teams that want to get the ball to the outside is as an edge rusher, you got to set the edge and you got to force them back inside. Get them back to where you have your teammates, you have your help around you. PFF gave Cassius Howell a 54.1 run defense grade last week. One of the worst among the defensive line guys for Texas A&M last week. They have to be better. That has to be better going forward. They need to be able to set a hard edge. That's what made Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart so special is those guys were really good against the run. Say what you want against them as a pass rusher and about being able to convert sacks, they were really good against the run. I would say borderline elite in Shamar Stewart's case.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I'm going to give you a bonus one real quick before we move on to our next segment. I'm going to say Bryce Anderson in the secondary. I didn't think Bryce Anderson played particularly well this past week. I know that he's a much better football player than what he showed over the weekend. And he caught some flack on social media, which that's weird. Like, I don't think that people should ever attack kids on social media for playing a game on a football field. Maybe I'm just a little bit of a traditionalist, but I don't think, like, just like I think you shouldn't tweet at recruits to get them to come to your school, I don't think you should attack Bryce Anderson or any college football player because they're not performing because you're sitting at home on your couch eating popcorn and drinking a beer. I don't think you could do much better. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a mini rant there that I had. But I think Bryce Anderson does need to step up. He's the leader of that secondary. He's an extremely talented player. He's going to play on Sundays. I think that he needs to take a step forward this week and help solidify the Aggie secondary because he can help out more than just the run. I mean, more than just the pass. He can help out in the run game as well. He's a very physical guy. So I'd like to see him take what happened last week, build on it, and have an impact in week 2. And I think he'll do just that because he's a really good football player. All right, Harrison, that was a quick segment because our next segment is going to be a little bit longer because we got throttled last week in our picks for the college football season, the opening week of college football season. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to make our new picks for the weekend and some key games that we're going to have a lot of fun watching. So stick with us after this break, and we will be right back to talk some bets this weekend, some picks for the upcoming week. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes and see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify what you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice that in an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKDOWNCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off the first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKDOWNCollege. All righty, Harrison. It's time to eat some crow, as they say. We made our picks last weekend for week 1 of college football. We seemed pretty confident about our picks. We had some takes, and boy, did we were wrong, Harrison. Before we get into our records here, which will reflect how way off we were, I do want it to be known that we both picked A&M to win. I picked them to cover. I don't remember what you picked, Harrison, but I lost that one too. So technically, I'm one game worse than our official picks, which is just that much worse. But last weekend, we picked Auburn versus Baylor. We picked Texas versus Ohio State. We picked LSU versus Clemson. We picked Florida State, Alabama, and we picked Miami, Notre Dame. The only game that we picked differently was Auburn versus Baylor. I picked Baylor to win that game. You picked Auburn. You got that one right.
I'll take it.
So good on you. You started off 1-0. As for Ohio State, Texas, LSU, Clemson, Florida State, Alabama, and Miami, Notre Dame, we all picked all the same, and we got boat raced in all the same. I finished the week 0-5. I picked Texas, Clemson, Alabama, and Notre Dame. Harrison did the same. He ends the week 1-4. I end the week 0-5. Harrison, it is time for a bounce back. All right,
huge bounce back.
We are due for a bounce back. So we're gonna pick 6 games this week because we couldn't decide on a fifth, so we're gonna go with 2 of them. The first
Matt
one
wants to go 6 and 5.
Yeah,
you want to get That's what you want to do.
I'm gonna get back over 500. Harrison's gonna get back over 500. We're gonna do this right. So let's get into our picks for this weekend. The first game is the biggest game, or should we save the biggest one for last?
I'd save the biggest game for last.
All right, we'll save the biggest one for last, so you guys stick around a little bit more. Let's start with the one that I thought was the most hilarious line of the entire group. That is Oregon minus 29.5 over Oklahoma State. Minus 29.5 over a fellow Power 4 team. That is insane to me. Mike Gundy was complaining about how they have no chance against Oregon because they don't have as much money as Oregon does, which is just like a weird way to go about talking to the media when your team has a major game coming up. Like, how do your players respond to that? I don't believe in Mike Gundy at all anymore. So I'm going to pick Oregon to cover minus 29.5. This is a big risk because that's a huge number, but I think they're going to absolutely boat race Oklahoma State. And I think they cover the minus 29.5. I really do.
Man, oh
risky.
man.
It's risky.
Oh man, we're starting it off hot here. Matt's coming with a hot take. I'm not taking Oregon to cover. I think Oregon wins, but I think Mike Gundy knew what he was doing when he was talking about Oregon's playing essentially a different sport from us. I think he's trying to talk to his football team, trying to get those guys fired up. Who knows? Maybe I regret this. Maybe Dan Lanning just gives another. They're fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. Hype speech, and they go out there and cover, and they cover by a lot. But I'm taking Oklahoma State to stay within 29.5 points.
I love Dan Lanning, by the way. He always has something hilarious to say. He doesn't shy away from any of that stuff, so I love that. We're already starting off with a different one, so that's good. One of us is going to be right. One of us is going to be wrong. So I like
the way it should be.
Starting. All right, next up, Iowa versus Iowa State. I can't remember what this rivalry is called, but it's an interstate rival. It's one of those that that gets people up there in the Midwest excited. It doesn't really have a name. It appears. I'm googling. The Cy-Hawk Trophy is the Iowa Corn Cy-Hawk Trophy is the award in this game. It's just called the Iowa State football rivalry, though. They don't have a cool name like the Lone Star Showdown or the Red River Shootout or anything like that. So I don't think Iowa can score points. Like, I'm not going to believe that Iowa can score points until they score points against good teams. It's a little bit of PTSD from Kirk Ferentz's kid being the offensive coordinator. I'm taking Iowa State minus 3.5 in this one.
Yeah, I'm a Rocco Beck believer. I think Rocco Beck showed out in Ireland. Loved what I saw from him. Just an absolute beautiful thrower of the football. I'm taking Rocco Beck to cover 3.5. I'm going to fade Iowa. What's the over-under on this game, Matt? Do we have that?
Oh,
it is actually 41.5 is the under.
41.5, yeah.
According to ESPN Bet. I believe, if I remember correctly, I saw this stat. The under in Division I college football games is 80, 46, and 2 to start the year. I'm taking the under in this football game as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a low-scoring one. Iowa doesn't score historically, so I think that's a pretty easy one. A little bonus bet there from you from Harrison. By the way, as we get into these picks, Harrison and I are obviously not gambling experts. We got smoked last week, so please do not take our advice. And go to FanDuel and make your bets. Just don't do it based on what we're saying. Next
You're
one.
bouncing back this week, though.
We are bouncing back this week. Next one, Ole Miss minus 10.5 versus Kentucky. I like the Rebels. As we all know, I am an Ole Miss alum. It's been hard to watch the Rebels kind of choke things away over the last couple years. They lost to Kentucky last year. It is on the road in Lexington, but I just think that Ole Miss is going to cover this one here. I think Kentucky's really bad. No shade to former Aggie Zach Calzada, who is the starting quarterback for the Wildcats, but I just don't think they have a shot here in this one.
Matt, this one makes me want to pull my hair out a lot because there's two things I know. Kentucky's good for a trap game upset win like they had last year.
Yeah.
Well, three things I know. 2, Kentucky Kroger Field is a house of horrors. Georgia notoriously plays terrible when they go to Kentucky. It's always an ugly football game. 3, Ole Miss does not travel well. And this is a 10.5-point line. It feels like a trap game, but then again, Kentucky just pulled the upset last year. You think there'd be a little bit of an edge. I got a lot of questions about Ole Miss up front. Can they stop the run? They lost a lot of talent from last year, a lot of NFL defensive line talent. I'm going to go against Matt here, and maybe he's going to kick me off the show for this. I'm taking Kentucky to cover the 10.5-point spread.
Okay.
I'm going to pull my hair out watching this game at 3:30, but maybe it's a good football game. This is one of those ones where if Ole Miss lets me down and they cover, then I know next time we'll take Ole Miss, we'll take the Rebels. But right now, I'm taking Kentucky to cover.
Yeah, I mean, one of us is automatically going to be better this week because we're already different on 2 picks. So we're one of us is going to take a commanding lead in this series. Next one up, Missouri minus 6.5 versus Kansas. We're going to keep this one quick, Harrison. I've got the Tigers. I was pretty impressed with Bo Pribula last week and Sam Horn for that matter. I think Missouri can move the football. I think they're going to move the football well against Kansas, and they're going to cover.
I'm against you here. I'm taking Kansas. Don't bet against Jalen Daniels. 7 touchdowns last week. Or not 7 touchdowns. He has 7 touchdowns through 2 games. They run the football well. They pass the football well. Give me Jalen Daniels in a absolute great game to cover the 6.5-point spread.
All right. We're moving and grooving now. Next one up, Baylor and SMU. SMU looked very unimpressive in their game against East Texas A&M. I know they won by a lot, but they could have looked better. Baylor got, for lack of a better term, dominated by Auburn on the ground. I don't think SMU has the horses in the ground game that Baylor does, because they don't have Jackson Arnold looking like Tim Tebow out there, which was absolutely crazy to see. But this is probably the hardest one for me. It's at SMU, which means absolutely nothing because SMU is not a difficult place to play. You know what? I'm gonna go against my gut here. I'm gonna pick SMU. I'm going to pick SMU minus 2.5.
I'm with you and taking SMU minus 2.5 solely for the fact that Kevin Jennings doesn't have to deal with the stadium pulse like he did at Penn State.
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right, game of the weekend, Harrison. We've got Oklahoma versus Michigan. Oklahoma is favored minus 2.5 at the Big House. By the way, we're going to bring you our Texas A&M pick on Friday. I like to get closer to the weekend before I pick the game for the team that we actually cover. But the suspense. But Michigan versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma minus 2.5 at the Big House. Texas went into the Big House last year and throttled Michigan. Michigan has a true freshman quarterback who did look pretty dang good in his opener last week. I really like Bryce Underwood. I think Bryce Underwood is an extremely talented football player. My difference here, though, oh my God, I am so wrong. This game is in Norman. I was looking at this flipped. Okay. Yeah. Um,
It changes
yeah.
things, doesn't it?
This completely changes things. I had this flipped. Disregard the last 1 minute of this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This game is in Norman. This one was close for me before I flipped this in my head. I think Oklahoma runs away with this thing. I have Oklahoma covering. I don't think Bryce Underwood's going to be able to handle the Oklahoma crowd. I think that it's probably not going to be the same story with Arch Manning against Ohio State necessarily. But this Oklahoma defense is real. John Mateer is an absolute dude. He broke Baker Mayfield's record for a season opener in week 1. So yeah, I'm hammering Oklahoma. I'm going Oklahoma -2.5 all day.
Yeah, until I see it, I don't think Michigan's problems were solely just quarterback last year. I think they got some issues on the skill position, specifically receiver. I don't know if they're gonna be able to go into a road environment quite like Norman and pull out a win with a freshman quarterback on the road this early in the season. Maybe later in the season it changes my opinion. I trust Brett Venables and his defense to get stops, to slow down this Michigan running attack. I'm taking Oklahoma to cover as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, so again, just to recap, I have Oregon -29.5 over Oklahoma State. Harrison has Oklahoma State covering. We both have Iowa State -3.5. I have Ole Miss -10.5 versus Kentucky. Harrison has Kentucky covering that spread. I have Missouri -6.5 against Kansas. Harrison picks Kansas +6.5. We both have SMU -2.5. We both have Oklahoma -2.5. Neither of us are going to go 6-0 this week. We picked 3 different ones, so one of us is going to pull ahead in this thing. One of us is going to fall very far behind, but we will see how it goes. But that's going to do it for another episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every day. But hey, it's another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star from North Carolina Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. Hopefully I will be on soon. They've got Texas A&M has some big games coming up this week, so I hope that I get to join the party there. It's really a college football playoff preview, or a college football preview that only Locked On can do. So catch college football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast, give me a follow over on Texas A&M Aggies on SI and on X at Matt Galatzan. Follow Harrison on X at Harrison Reno. And we will see you next time. Surely Oklahoma's not going to disappoint me this week. I don't usually pick the Sooners, but here we are.